Hey guys, I'm Jordan Carruthers. I'm a storm chaser for Manitoba Storm Chasers. I've been doing this for just about 14 years now. This summer will be my 14th season. I basically spend my summers chasing severe weather across Canada and the United States of America, searching for severe weather, tornadoes, damaging hail, reporting that to Environment Canada or the National Weather Service if I'm in the States, and bringing live streaming and photos and videos to social media, and just trying to get early warnings out to the public and let people know exactly what's going on in their areas as it's happening live. To prepare for a chase, I would spend 3 to 4 days beforehand looking at weather models and predicting what I think is going to happen in the weather, and then finding a target where I want to travel to and set up where I think is going to be the strongest potential for severe weather or tornadoes or strong hail, damaging winds. And as those days progress closer, I'll keep rechecking the models every day, a couple times a day, until about the day before when I'm really confident about where I think I want to go. And then I'll start packing up my cameras, setting up my chase truck, and hit the road, usually the day before or early that morning if it's close enough. And then from there, I'll travel to my destination. Every time I stop for gas or anything like that, I'll recheck the models, double check, make sure everything still looks good for that area. And then basically get to my target area and sit and wait, watch the sky, watch how things are developing, watch radar, and again, continuously checking models to make sure everything still looks good. And then basically, at that point, it's a waiting game to see how the storms actually play out, if they actually end up producing. And if they do, then we're on for the chase for until that storm's dead or until it gets too late to continue chasing. And then basically after the chase, if I'm far enough away from home, I'll usually just find a parking lot or something to sleep in for the night and either chase again the next day or go home, depending on what the weather's doing. So in a typical year, I will drive anywhere from eastern Manitoba all the way over to western Alberta, right up to the Rockies, or anywhere from Canada down to the Mexico border. I've never actually crossed the Mexico border to chase, but there's been a few times where I would have liked to. But typically what we'll do, obviously this year and the last year, borders have been closed due to COVID, so we haven't been able to go down south. But typically for the month of May, we'll spend the entire month down in what's known as Tornado Alley, which is an area that extends through Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, New Mexico, Wyoming, and kind of the Great Plains of the United States. And that's where we will typically see the most frequent tornadoes during their storm season. They can get upwards of a couple thousand tornadoes there in those few states in just the month of May alone. And then from there we'll move up to the northern plains of the United States in the beginning of June, and into Canada late June into July and August. The storm systems the storm seasons kind of tend to go from down in the southern US and move their way up into Canada throughout the summer months. So that's what we'll typically do in a year. Years like this year with COVID, we'll likely start chasing Canada end of May into the beginning of June, as long as the weather cooperates with us. I think last year my first chase of the year was May 26th in western Saskatchewan, near the town of Maple Creek. It wasn't a very significant setup, but it was kind of the first chase of the year, so we all wanted to be out there and chasing. Canada's severe weather season kind of runs from Mid-June to early August is when we tend to see the most frequent tornadoes in the Canadian prairies, and Manitoba typically on average sees 9 to 14 tornadoes per year, with Saskatchewan and Alberta seeing upwards of 18 to 20. So a lot of our time's actually spent in Saskatchewan because that's where we tend to get the most tornadoes. So what inspired me and got me into storm chasing from the very start was actually when I was a kid. My dad was really into severe weather, so him and I would just kind of go out locally around our town and chase the storms that were local, and it really drove me to want to learn more about how severe weather occurs and what we can do in preparation for severe weather and stuff like that. And then so I kind of started teaching myself using the internet and YouTube and all the available resources to learn everything I could about the weather. And then in 2007 there was the only F5 tornado to ever occur in Canada. Occurred just 30 minutes away from my house in the town of Ely, Manitoba. And I didn't witness that one, but my family and I drove out afterwards to see the damage that occurred, and it just kind of blew my mind how powerful these storms could be. And that was when I really started getting into wanting to learn everything I could and just figure out how these storms actually work. So that was when I really started to train myself, I guess would be the best way to say it, using Google, YouTube, all the available resources on the internet. I took a couple of online meteorology courses, not really meteorology, but storm spotting courses and stuff like that, which are all available for free online. And I use those resources to teach myself, train myself, and learn everything that I know now. And still to this day, I'm still learning new things about the weather. It seems to be you never know everything you can about the weather. So there's always things I'm going to be learning, and I just take those in and continue on with that. Yeah, we spend most of our time focusing on chasing tornadoes, looking for tornadoes, getting tornado warnings issued. I have the odd time gone way down into the southeast United States to chase hurricanes. I deal with blizzards sometimes in the winter. They don't really give me that adrenaline rush that severe weather does, but I will chase blizzards and report what I'm seeing there to Environment Canada if they need to issue warnings for that, or if Manitoba 511 needs to close highways and stuff like that. But yeah, tornadoes are kind of the big #1 priority for us. Environment Canada and the National Weather Service, we are kind of quiet partners, I guess you would call it. We don't have any official partnership between them and storm chasers or anything like that. But we use the storm reporting phone number that they have available, and social media, especially Twitter, is really big for reporting severe weather. And yeah, so even the general public, if you're not a storm chaser and you see a tornado or something like that, you can report that to Environment Canada as well, and they'll take it just as seriously as the storm chasers. Just kind of thinking back to a kind of exciting time when we could cross the border was 2019. We were down near the town of Tahoka, Texas on May 5th, 2019. And it was we had just gotten down there, the season was just starting, and there wasn't a whole lot of chasers out yet. And we had this beautiful setup where there was a couple storms that could go off. And so we were setting up outside the town of Ropesville, which is right near Tahoka, Texas, kind of in the Lubbock, Texas area. And we had picked our target a couple days prior. We knew there was a chance of 1 or 2 really strong storms going up in that area and possibly going tornadic. So as the day went on, we started seeing some storm clouds building up and looking really good. and I think it was around 2 to 3 p.m., I can't quite remember, but we had two severe warm storms right side by side, so we kind of had to pick and choose what we wanted to go for. One was kind of moving more northeast and the other was moving southeast and kind of splitting away from each other. They both looked very similar. They were both in kind of the same environments, and they both had a lot of the same things going for them, so we just kind of tossed a coin and decided to go for the south storm. And we were on it for probably an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, and then it started looking like it was going to die, and we were kind of getting a little disappointed on that. And then out of nowhere, what we call an outflow boundary, which is kind of a line of, it can either be a line of dry air or a line of really moist air, came off of another storm in the area and pushed its way into this storm, and almost instantaneously it started to produce a tornado. And so we were getting really excited. This was our first tornado of the year, and it was just probably a half a mile away from us in a field when we started seeing dust and debris getting picked up off of the ground. And within a few minutes, it formed into this big, beautiful tornado, and it was kind of like a brownish red color because of the type of soil in that area. It's a red soil. And we just kind of stuck beside it the whole time as it came, and it crossed the highway right in front of us, probably 150 feet in front of us. And that tornado went on to cause no damage. It caused a little bit of a damage in a farm field nearby, but for the most part there was no damage, no deaths or injuries. And it was just this big, beautiful tornado, our first one of the year. And that ended up being, it's in my top 2 tornadoes I've ever gotten now, just because of its size and its shape and how close we were able to be to it. And yeah, that's probably my most exciting storm I've ever been on, would be that one. Just because it was such a perfect target choice, and everything just played out so nicely for us. And like I said, there was no fatalities or injuries or bad destruction, which is always what we hope for when we see a tornado. We never want to see people getting hurt or property being damaged. But with that being said, we are certified, or I am certified in emergency first aid and CPR. So if by chance, luckily I've never been in a situation where I needed to use that, but if by chance we ever come across that kind of situation, I'm just happy to know that I will be able to help if I need to. And a lot of times storm chasers are the very first ones on scene after a disaster like that. So I know most storm chasers are trained in first aid and CPR and search and rescue for that reason. So that's another reason why we are out there. We don't want to have to do that stuff, but we can if we need to. In the middle of a chase, we are constantly thinking about safety as the #1 priority. We always want to have at least 3 to 4 different directions that we can go if we're starting to get, if we think we're a little too close or something like that. Anytime we stop, we try to stop in a position where we have a road that we can go northeast, south, or west to get out of the path if we think it's getting too close, or if we're in a dangerous position. We always want to have that escape route. As far as how close is too close, that really depends on that exact storm. If we just have a small, weak tornado, we're not really too worried about it. If it's like an EF0 or an EF1, we can usually be pretty safe around those. If we're starting to get into like EF2 and stronger, that's when we want to really start thinking about how close we're actually getting and make sure we're not getting, you know, closer than maybe a mile away from it, something like that, and you know, farther if it's a bigger tornado or a stronger one. We also try our best to avoid hail cores, just because that can wreak a lot of damage to our vehicle and smash out our windshield or our side windows and stuff like that. So we do our best to avoid the heaviest and largest hail. Obviously there is some times where we can't avoid it and we do go right through hail cores. I've actually written off 2 vehicles in the past doing that. So yeah, safety is #1 priority when we're in the middle of a chase, and then secondary comes filming and taking photos, and of course reporting to the authorities to make sure they're able to get those warnings out in a timely manner. Simply because they can't, if they're looking at radar, they can't really see what's happening underneath the storm. So having storm chasers on the ground is really critical in times like those, so that the chasers can report what they're seeing to Environment Canada, and Environment Canada can use their discretion to issue the appropriate warnings in those times. So this is our storm chasing vehicle. It's a 2006 Hummer H3. We haven't done a whole lot of modifications to it yet. We just kind of got it I believe it was last August we picked this one up. If you look up here, you can see we have our Davis weather station, and this is very important for when we're out in the field. It'll tell us wind speeds, barometric pressure, temperature, dew point and humidity, stuff like that, which is all information that will help us confirm what the weather models were saying when we were watching them. And that just kind of, helps us confirm our target, as well as if we're near a tornado, close enough, and we're picking up the wind speeds off of it, we will be able to report those wind speeds directly to Environment Canada, which will help them get a better classification on the tornado if there wasn't a lot of damage that occurred. Because that's basically the main feature that helps get a tornado its warning, is how much damage occurred and what kind of damage occurred. So to have the available wind speeds associated with that is really helpful for the studies of tornadoes, as well as getting proper warnings issued. In about a week or so, our truck's actually going into the shop in Winnipeg to Extreme Coatings, and they are doing a full coating of Reflex Bed Liner on it, which will help protect us in severe hail and strong winds. Just by putting kind of a protective coating against the body of the vehicle, we'll be less susceptible to dents and scratches, stuff like that. And then from there, we're getting a steel exoskeleton put on it, which will protect against any large flying debris, 2x4s, stuff like that, which can be very dangerous in tornadoes and strong winds. So that'll be covering the entire vehicle. And then from there, we are getting a polycarbonate laminate put on all of the side windows and the windshield, and that's to protect them from hail. It's basically a thin laminate film, almost like a tint that goes on the outside of the windows, and that'll protect them from getting smashed by severe hail. And Vehicle Protective Solutions in Winnipeg is doing that for us. So if we look inside the vehicle, we have a tablet that kind of hangs over the passenger seat, which shows us our radar. When we're chasing, we have dash cam, my cell phone for filming and doing Google Maps and stuff like that. We have CB radio, which will give us tornado warnings as soon as they're issued, or any other severe weather warnings, as well as give us the ability to communicate with other storm chasers in the area, or even if there's truck drivers in the area talking about the weather. That kind of gives us the ability to communicate with them. Aside from that, there's not a whole lot more on the inside of the vehicle right now. Thank you for watching Under the Meso. Make sure you stay tuned for the next episode. See a little bit more about what I do and maybe even see a little bit of action as well. Thank you guys.